Hello, ladies and gentlemen. This is your girl Mitzi, and this is Mitzi. Let's think about it. Today we are thinking about the human touch. Isn't that a thinker? And that is exactly what we will be thinking about today. And luckily, I have Epiphany here to help us think about this in a whole new way. So thank you so much, Epiphany, for coming on to my show, sharing your time and your perspective. I am excited. Let's go ahead and just dive right in. When you hear the words human touch, what does that make you think about?
What does it make me think about? Oh, it,
Mm-hmm.
it makes me think about a lot of things, but to suspect it for your listeners, it makes them think about either having sex with somebody or giving a hug to their child. But they don't. The reason that you and I are having this conversation is because there's so much more to it that people don't think about. And while they might want more of it, it's hard to get. And so that's kind of where I think we're going to be diving in.
Yeah, well, that's the beauty of understanding, like having a 360 perspective. You know what I mean? Where you allow yourself to realize that a lot of the times people will associate human touch with sexual contact and just children and parents, and that bonding moment and things like that. But then in reality, if you really want to go around the table and really spin it up and really land on where it lands, let's be honest, human touch is connection. You know what I mean? Human touch is this
It
knowing
absolutely
that
is.
we are not alone. You know what I mean? It's knowing that you are real because I can touch you to a sense. You know what I mean? Like when my hand touches another person's hands, there's like connectivity. You know what I mean? There's chemistry, there's
Yeah.
understanding, there's like peace, there's fear, there's so many emotions that rile up. So like in reality,
Yeah.
when if I were to think about this, and I did when I we were setting this up, that is the first thing that I thought about was like how surreal and how powerful it is to just touch somebody and possibly give them peace, to give them understanding, to give them love, to give them everything that they may not had at one point in time. Because when, for instance, like if somebody's depressed, what are you going to do? You hug them, and it releases this chemical in you, and it calms them down sometimes. You know what I mean? So it's just like it's so beautiful. So I guess it comes down to, when did you realize human touch for you was something more than just the surface level?
I've been like seriously working on this topic probably since 2013, but I had this experience. Oh my God, let's see. This was probably in the early 90s. I was at this retreat, and there was a woman there who had been having a really hard time. She was processing some stuff about her mother, and we were all kind of like staying in a big house together. And I remember going and sitting with her as she was getting ready for bed, and I just kind of put my hand on her face and kind of tucked her into bed. And she would bring it back up to me every time I talked to her for years afterwards. We've lost touch now, but it was an experience for her that was really profound. And I mean, I've done that kind of thing to other people over the years, and it's just always surprising to me how long something like that will stay with them. I had a friend who lived off the grid in Northern California, and she was epileptic, so she didn't drive. So she would go for days on end without seeing people. And I always made sure to hug her a lot when we got together. And I talked to her on the phone, and she was like, the memory of that has sustained me for such a long time. I mean, there's a reason that when we put people in solitary confinement, that it's like they don't touch another person. It's like
It's a real
anger is the
thing.
thing. Yeah, it
Yes,
is.
it's a real thing because
Absolutely.
there's been studies where even it affects animals as well. Like if you were to own like a reptile, let's say like a bearded dragon or a snake or whatever, and you just left it in confinement alone with no contact, they are very
Yeah.
aggressive. But when they're exposed and they have human contact daily, they are the most docile, calmest animals ever. And it's the same with human beings, the same with dogs, the same with cat. I mean, the same with anything that has a heartbeat and understands to a degree. They need some type of touch. You know what I mean? I mean, but what are some misconceptions about human touch that you're aware of?
Misconceptions. The first one I think that we've been talking about is probably the biggest one, which is that if you're going to touch somebody, if two adults are touching each other, that it means that they're going to have sex. I mean, we hug our friends hello or goodbye, but other than that, it's like to think about like doing some extended snuggling or cuddling with somebody who's your friend. You're like, wait, what? No, can't do that. Um, let's see. Everybody, another misconception is that everybody enjoys touch or has the same need for it. Even though this is a topic that I think that it's like most people want or need more, but there are a lot of people who don't want it for various reasons, and that we should honor that. There's the misconception that if you get married to somebody or if you're in a romantic relationship that you're going to get all the touch that you want. There's lots of couples who I think it's like 15% of couples are in sexless marriages. There's the misconception that we only need touch when we are children or babies or infants. It's absolutely crucial at that point in our lives. Like you were saying, without touch, animals get aggressive. It's, kind of similar with humans. But, it's like elderly people need it. I'm working on starting a business right now where we go into retirement homes and provide touch. And, it's like people are really enjoy it, but then like afterwards they're like, oh no, 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 I don't need that. Or people sometimes talk themselves out of it.
Yeah,
But it's important all through our lives. I mean, I just lost my 18-year-old cat, and the last year or so, I mean, she just wanted to be in my lap all the time. Or if I wasn't around, if I had a house sitter or friends came over, she just like wanted everybody to hold her. It's like I think we need touch more and not less as we age.
yeah,
Those are some of the big ones.
yeah,
The idea that all touch is enjoyable is a huge one. A lot of people who don't like touch, it's because they had a really negative experience with it. I think almost all of us have. And
yeah,
it can be some sort of aggression or assault, but it could also be something like a medical procedure. It's like I turn about six shades of pale and almost faint when I have blood drawn. Like this is a really common thing for me, but yeah. So there's a lot of touch that we don't like and that aren't isn't pleasant, and so while this is simple as you say, it's just basic human connection on the most uh, elemental of human levels. At the same time, I think it's complicated because
it is.
not
Yeah.
everybody likes touch, not everybody wants it, and if we want people to have more touch, we need to honor their no's as well as their yeses.
Oh, absolutely. I think you touched down on so many great misconceptions and so many great points in general because let's be honest, yeah, so many people are very particular when it comes to touch. I know for me, I am like I don't like to be touched. Don't touch me. You know what I mean? Like don't like ugh, like
Yeah,
that's my thing. And when I had kids and my husband like he was okay with it because he was not that affectionate, you know what I mean? It wasn't until we had our sons and they just demanded it all the time where I had no say. Sometimes I was just like like, I had to process it, but now I'm okay because I'm realizing and I'm learning that that's their love language. You know what I mean? Right now, they don't know any better. I mean, they're
Yeah.
babies. They're 2 and 3 years old. You know what I mean? They're my little
Uh-huh.
babies. So they don't know any better, and I know that that's just their way of connecting, and that's when I learned, like, it's a deeper, it's not sexual, it's not always invading, it's not like they're doing it on purpose to poke your buttons or anything like that. It's just because that's how they want to show love, so I've learned to let it go. So for me and my family in my household, it's okay. Like, you can be all over me, you can hug me, whatever, you can squeeze me, but when it's out in strangers, like, don't touch me. You know what I mean? I don't need you to touch me. Like,
Yeah.
if I know you, like, yeah, maybe I'll give you a side hug, or you know what I mean? Things like that. But other than that, hello, how you doing? I see you right there. You know what I mean? That's like just my
Yeah.
my space,
Like
my
fist
personal bubble.
bump.
Right?
Yeah.
Exactly. Like, unless I know you, and we were chimmy chimmy like that, like, nah, we're gonna keep it at a hands view, like, hello, how you doing, sir? That's
No,
that's
I
my
I
that's
think
my
that's
go-to.
yeah, I think it's fantastic that you know your limits and your boundaries, and it sounds like you're somebody who's comfortable with saying no to people and not taking responsibility for them being upset or offended or what have you. I mean, that's a skill that a lot of people who don't like touch don't have, and it's absolutely important to, that's where the whole conversation about consent comes in.
Yeah, most
I mean, it's
definitely.
it's so it's so simple. I mean, even though I'm like I love to hug people, and there's lots of people that I meet that, I hug them right off the bat, but it's always good to say, would you like a hug? Especially if it's somebody I hadn't met. Like, last year I met up with I was with this guy that, we had gone to school together online, and we had developed a really great friendship, and he would tell me about his girlfriend all the time, but like, she popped her head in once hi to say hi when we were on a Zoom meeting together. But I met them for the first time, and of course he and I like went in for a hug because we had been talking for a year
Yeah.
and a half. But I'd never met his girlfriend, although I felt like I knew her. And I was like, "Oh, do you like a hug?" And she was like, "Yeah, thanks for asking." And we did hug each other. But
Yeah.
it's like, I think that making assumptions that everybody wants or needs the same amount of touch gets us in trouble, and it makes it harder for people to say yes or to say no or to ask for it. Or it's, again, it's very simple, but it's also very complicated. So
It is a very complicated recipe, because sometimes I've had one time where I thought it was a hugging moment, but then I realized after I hugged the person, it was not a hugging moment. You know what I mean? Have you ever had those moments?
yes, yes, I have. I mean, this is something that I talk about and study and write about and practice, and I still screw it up all the time. So, you're not alone. And I think one of the reasons is because, like, we don't, it's like we don't always know. And culture is changing a lot in a lot of areas. And it's like, and it could be like there's so many things that go into whether or not we like to be touched. There's your upbringing, there's
Yeah.
were you raised in a certain religion, what's your gender, power roles is a big one. I have a friend who's super super sweet, and he was the CEO of a company, and he was like, I have such a hard time, like, not coming to work and hugging all my employees. And he realized, it was like he was just like he was really happy to see them, and didn't mean anything by it. He just like wanted to hug them because he was an affectionate person. But he realized that, like, yeah, if the boss comes in for a hug from their employee, and the employee's like, oh shit, am I going to get fired if I don't hug my boss? So it's like that power differential, um is
It's
something
true.
where you were raised in the world. Different cultures
Cultures, yeah.
have different standards around it. And
Hmm.
there's just so many different factors that go into it. I mean, it could be like, you know, I, you go into, like, touch somebody on the arm, and maybe they got a shot on the they're sunburned or something. I mean, it's like they're tired, whatever. You just, it's hard to tell, but and being direct is often to
Yeah.
actually ask, as opposed to assuming, I think can be
Abs
really helpful. So
Oh
yeah,
yeah. I mean, it's learning to have that open communication, be responsive, knowing what your boundaries are, knowing where your
yeah.
respect is and things like that, and just having that understanding like it's nothing romantic. I'm just excited. I'm just happy. I'm like a dog. I'm like a happy dog that's wagging his tail and pees sometimes. I just want to hug you. You know what I mean? Have you ever seen those happy ones? Yeah, it'd be
Yeah,
like that
yeah,
sometimes.
totally.
But what do you think about how there's now people that pay for cuddlers, you know what I mean? To just to hug them and just to be in their presence and just to
Yeah.
snuggle them. I mean, for me,
Uh,
I feel like that's so like it just shows how humanity needs each other, you know what I mean? But for you, what does that make you think about?
so that's work that I've done. I used to have a hands-on business that was similar to professional cuddling, but a little bit different. I've done a little bit of one-on-one professional cuddling, and it's something that people think is really sad or disgusting or whatever, but at the same time they're like flipping through apps looking for somebody to hook up with because
Yeah,
that's
same
how
thing.
that's how we get touch. The thing that I would say about that I think is really important for people to kind of remember or think about before they judge is that for a lot of people, the choice is not, do I get touch from somebody I know or do I get touch from a stranger? But the choice is, do I get touch from a stranger or do I go completely without it? I mean,
Yeah, exactly.
it's a reframe, but it's important, and then there's people who like don't feel comfortable asking people they know,
Yeah.
similar to like a lot of times professional cuddling is compared to sex work, but it's like if you read stories that are written by sex workers, they're like, yeah, I have these clients who come in and they just want to lay on the bed and be held and talk. So I mean it's such a basic human need, and we have really gotten to a point in our world where we don't have it. There's a lot of people who are married, like I said before, it's like there are people who are married who don't, their partners don't want to touch them ever.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
like, so I mean, there's all kinds of circumstances that would lead people to, I mean, like, my boyfriend just broke up with me, and I'm very fortunate that I have a cuddle buddy. It's a friend of mine who's a woman. I'm not bisexual, and I saw her earlier this week. We just like lay in bed and hold each other and talk for an hour. We talk about relationship stuff. A couple weeks ago, like right after he broke up with me, I was cuddling with her and her new boyfriend, who I'd never met. And, everybody knew that it wasn't a sexual thing. The three of us took turns being in the middle, so getting that experience of being held, probably like you and your husband will cuddle one of your kids, or, like the whole family will be in bed together. I mean, for thousands of years, that was how human beings survived. And yet,
Yeah.
that's such a taboo thing. And people are like, oh, come on, I know you guys had a threesome or whatever. And it's like, no, we
Yeah.
were just cuddling. And
Yeah.
um, it's pretty wonderful, especially when you're feeling not good about things, and or
Yeah.
gone through a loss and you need comfort. I mean, so many of us shoulder these burdens of comfort or stress or
Yes.
whatever by ourselves, and it's like human beings
Absolutely.
aren't meant to grieve in by themselves. We're not meant, human beings need other human beings to survive.
Oh, absolutely. And I think it's just the fact that we've turned into an individualistic society and culture where everything is individualized. You can do everything independently, independent. You don't need nobody, you don't need your family, you don't need friends, you don't need an animal, you don't need nothing. You know
Yeah,
what I mean? So it's just like We have lost touch of that human connection. You know what I mean? Because going back from
Yeah,
the
for
very
sure.
beginning, it comes down to human connection, and it doesn't have to be sexual. It just has to be real. You know what I mean? It has to be sincere. Like, I'm here for you. Can you be here for me? You know what I mean? That's just the reality of what humans were. We knew that we can be together, you know what I mean? And just
Mhm.
be in the same space and know that it was just real. It was all that we had, because this was the physical. This is our senses, you know what I mean? So we go off our senses so much, and we need that human connection. And I do agree. I do think it's sad that people think it's sad, but it's not sad. It's only sad that you don't understand what human connection needs and what you actually need as a human being. Because I mean,
Yeah.
one thing that first came to mind was the movie Crudes. I mean, I watch a lot of kids movies because my kids are young, but there's a kid
Wait, what
movie
movie
called
is this?
Crudes. It's about like these cavemen, right? So they gang up in a pile to go to sleep every night. They just pile up, right? And
For
that's
warmth
the
and safety.
for warmth and safety, exactly. It's just to be piled up. So then they went to another area where these other families, they were like, that's weird. We're individuals. We sleep on our own pods. We don't sleep in a pile like some savages. You know what I mean? This is judging. So I'm just like, it's
Right.
crazy how nothing has changed. Like, if that was really happening in like Stone Age time, then that was probably still happening now to this day in the 21st century. So it's like people need to get in touch with themselves and get in touch with humanity, and maybe, just maybe there's will be some hope for humanity, and maybe there'll be some more
Yeah.
peace and love that we all so desperately need. Oh my goodness, we also desperately need to remember that we need this human touch. This technology is amazing. It has its values, but in its values, when it's out of place, then it's out of place. You know what I mean? Like water. Water is amazing. It's perfect in its purpose, but when it's out of its purpose, it gets destructive, and it gets violent, and it gets out of control. You know what I mean? We see it
Yeah.
all the time. So it's like we need to remember that when it comes to human touch, it's purposeful. It has its reasons. And oh my goodness, it's sad that time is catching up to us, Epiphany. I feel like we could keep talking about this for hours on end. So I guess I got to start wrapping this up. So what can be some lasting words that you can leave us off with to keep on thinking?
Yeah. Let's see. The two pieces of advice that I give people, if you take nothing else away, is that touch means something very different to every person. So you kind of have to get on the same page as it. You can't assume that, if you're hugging somebody that they want to be hugged, or, it's like you were saying, you don't really like to be touched by a lot of people. And, maybe you have a friend who loves touch. It's helpful to it's important to allow yourself to be vulnerable around this topic. I mean, it's possible to get more touch in your life without getting out of your comfort zone in some way, shape, or form. I think for people, I think a lot of people have resources in that they have like really strong circles of friends, but they may not be in a romantic relationship. I think almost 50% of Americans are single. What was it that I saw a statistic a while back? Over 50% of people who are single haven't even had sex like once in the past year. It's like people are not getting touched the way they used to. They're waiting to marry longer, they're having fewer kids. So, the culture around this has been changing a lot. And so, this idea of like if one adult is touching another adult, especially if if there's that it's going to be something sexual. And if you do it more in a group setting, like, if there's like four people, three people, then it becomes more of a social activity, where it's more like being a little kid, because I mean, little kids do that all the time. It's like they'll
Yeah.
all
Group
get in a
hug.
pile
Yeah.
to like watch a TV show or something. Um, and yeah, it's like put yourself out of your comfort zone. Oh, also, a little tiny bit of touch goes a long way. It could be as simple as like somebody touching your shoulder, or like I have a friend who was trying to get more touch with her housemate, and they were both kind of squirrely about it. and they would sit on the couch, and instead of sitting at opposite ends of the couch, they would sit on the couch with their shoulders touching. And that was it. I would also say that there are tons of health benefits to touch to think about. It's something that's it's good for your heart. It's good for your nervous system. It's good for your blood pressure, for your immune system. I used to I used to think that we should market our hands-on business as a beauty treatment because people would look 10 years younger when we got done with them. I mean, it's like it's relaxing, it's soothing, it's de-stressing. There's so many good reasons to do this, and like you said, it's something that might make the world a better place, and it's a pretty simple way to get it.
Yeah, exactly. It's very simple. We just make it more complicated because majority of the time we live in our head. You know what I mean? And since we live in our head,
Exactly.
we realize
100%
that we
guilty
we,
as
we
charged.
yeah, you know what I mean? We don't go out. You know what I mean? Since we're in our head, we don't go out. I don't see the sun in there. It's just there. You know what I mean? I see the same
Yeah,
thoughts and
yeah.
same things over and over again. The same reel goes over in your mind. And it's like when we have that human touch, man, it takes us back. Takes us back to
Mhm.
reality, makes us realize, oh, you know what I mean?
It
Like
is
that
very
feels
grounding.
it is. Oh, that's the word I was looking for. Thank you. You were right there. See,
Yeah.
you're in my mind.
No, I've just
There-
I've just talked to a lot of people about this topic. It's like when you do touch people, if they want it, they're like, that feels wonderful. I feel blissed out. I'm happy. I'm giddy. I'm joyful. I'm peaceful. I'm content. I mean, it's like, these are things that I'm relaxed. It's like, these are things we all need in our lives, right? And
exactly.
yeah, it's definitely
We
an easy
don't
way to do it.
Man, we don't realize how much we really need this. And I'm so glad that we got to have this conversation so that we can have
Yes.
people think about this in a new way and consider maybe instead of shrugging off somebody who tried to accidentally touch you, that you would maybe consider it like, or touch things that you like. Like for me, I don't like people touching me, but I like to touch soft things. You know what I mean? So when I'm
Hmm.
walking, I would touch something soft that I know it's soft. My husband knows it, like, you're going to touch that, aren't you? I'm like, I sure am. But it's funny because my son is the same way, so it's really cute. But oh my goodness. Anyways, yes, ladies and gentlemen, if you enjoyed Epiphany and you enjoyed this conversation, because how could you not, right? Please go check her out. I have access to her website in the audio and in the video description. If you're watching on YouTube, it's still there in the description, or if you're on my website, go find her lovely photo, click on it, and it goes straight to her website so that you can continue on thinking, because she has great content so that you can. So with that being said, bye.